Words have always meant a lot to me. I know words can be positive or they could be used in a negative way, and how much they can impact your life. I remember when I was younger, I remember deciding one day when I was in high school, oh, I'll wear my hair in a big afro and go to school like that. Because for me, my hair was always an issue growing up. And so I didn't always feel comfortable just letting it out. But for some reason, I felt like doing that one day. I remember it was a pretty good day all day. You know, I felt a little self-conscious, but I got over it because I was trying something. And I wanted to challenge myself. And then I remember when I was leaving the school and I was almost out the door, I remember hearing somebody say, oh, her hair looks like buckwheat. And how much that really disturbed me. I remember going home and hearing that play in my head over and over again, and how that messed with my self-esteem and made me feel like I wasn't really pretty. And I remember hiding in the basement of my group home, and in the laundry room and crying until my support worker came and she talked to me. She tried to lift my spirits by telling me how beautiful she felt I was and that I was special. And I remember just hearing her say I was special and how that had such a different impact on my life. I remember always having a dream to be a writer, because I had started writing when I was 12 and I was going to therapy, and one of the things my therapist, who's also my friend today, told me to do was to write poems to express my feelings of anger and sadness from all the abuse that had happened. And I remember it started small, like in a journal, and then when I hit my 20s and I started going to university, I just collected poems I'd write about friends or guys that I was like crazy about, and I had all these feelings, so I'd write them, and I had quite a collection of poems, at least 200. And I remember I'd share them with friends and they'd be like, yeah, you should publish that, you're a really good writer. And I remember trying to send away to publishing houses, and I remember one publisher wrote me back and said, have you ever considered songwriting? And I remember how offended I was, because I never wanted to be a songwriter, I just really wanted to be a writer. And I had this big vision of like sitting in a cabin and writing novel after novel and just, you know, living this writer's lifestyle. But that stuck with me, and years later I didn't know I would actually become a songwriter. But before that would happen, my dream of becoming a published author with my first book, Little Black Butterfly in Iridescent Sunlight, would happen. It was such a weird thing to get an email saying we've decided to publish your book. I never screamed so loud because I was so ecstatic after months of being depressed and on leave from work, because my doctor had decided perhaps I was manic depressive because I was always walking around and I always felt like there was a cloud stuck on me and everything in life was moving forward, but I was stuck in the past and I couldn't get out of it because of all the bad memories. And I remember thinking, I'll throw a book launch and who knows, maybe one person or maybe two will come. And I remember I was so shocked when it was sold out and there were tons of people there, because I always never felt people really got who I was as a person, that I was very different and just kind of marched to the beat of my own drum. But people showed up. I remember I had a friend who knew somebody at 107, it was a station that used to be around, and she got me an interview on there and I talked about my book. And at the time I had a friend who was a singer and she came along because I didn't want to go alone, so I brought her along for support, and she ended up singing on the show too. And all these people came out to the book launch and they bought the books, and the first week that it was out, it was a bestseller on McNally Robinson's best-selling list, and I was ecstatic because it was more than I ever dreamed. So that inspired me then to put out my spoken word CD, Black Butterfly, which was poems set to music, something I never thought I'd get to do. But there were local hip-hop artists that lent me their beats, and I did my spoken word, and that's how I got into that. Well, my friend who was a singer wanted to release an album, and I remember I had my first song come to me when I was sleeping one night, and it was called Tired, and I woke up and I wrote the song and I already knew how the melody was going to go, and so I sang it to her even though I couldn't really sing at the time. And I remember her recording that song and how excited I was, because here I just thought I was going to be an author, and then I ended up doing spoken word, and then I had my book Wounded Souls where that song was, Tired was one of the songs. And then to make things even better, I used one of my poems, The Real Woman, from my first book, Little Black Butterfly, and we made this short film called The Real Woman, which really told the story of how I felt being a woman and not feeling like I could be naturally beautiful, that, you know, everything seemed to be about women being perfect and like these fantasy images that they weren't in reality. And I remember all the women I got to be a part of this video and how amazing it was, and how I was discovering my voice, and that people were listening and they were actually, it was resonating with them, and how it felt so good to connect and to share my story about self-esteem issues and abuse. And I remember I used to get emails from people telling me their stories of being abused, and how they couldn't even tell their husband that they were married to for years, and how it impacted their children and their marriage, and how much that hurt me to hear that, how they were still suffering and still struggling. And I remember how I was still struggling, and how I went to the Laurel Center to get therapy because I was making some bad choices still. And how after years of going for therapy, during the process of going there, I made this album called Wounded Souls that was kind of like a companion to my book, Wounded Souls. And how I hired all these local singers to sing songs that I'd written, and I picked specially from them about domestic violence and about overcoming abuse and adversity. And then that kind of prompted my mission and vision for my company, In the Closet Productions, a voice for the voiceless, because I always wanted to be a person that used my voice to speak up for those who couldn't speak for themselves, to use my projects to raise money to help community organizations like the Laurel Center and other missions that help people who go through a lot of bad things and they don't feel like anyone cares or hears them and what they're going through. I wanted to be a person that spoke up for those people. And so every project from that first book that I did has always been to help people, to share with them. Fortunately, during this journey that I've been on of creating music and art for positive social change, I've met some people who haven't been nice. Some people who don't care about abuse and who are abusers themselves, but they hide behind businesses and act as if they're more powerful than you. And I've had, in the last little while, struggles with somebody exactly like that, who decided to take this project that I spent 2 years working on, investing my hard-earned money into, and destroy it just because they felt it was worth nothing, even though I had paid them to distribute it. And that's an ongoing battle now that I'm going through, and I hope it comes to an end in a good way. But I realized something: when you're trying to do something good, you're always going to meet people who don't agree or don't care, and they're going to make it hard for you. And then that's when you really have to figure out your vision, if they matter more than what you're doing, or if what you are doing is worth it, the struggle, the stress. And so I try not to let their words that are negative shape the words that I'm trying to put out there, because to me words are like seeds, and they grow into trees and they impact people. So I want to plant a tree full of words that's going to help people, that's going to be a blessing to them. I want In the Closet Productions, my company, to have a long-lasting legacy of helping people, and my songs to be seeds that really help people to feel that they can overcome adversity.